we're back on the CEO Pulse podcast where you get the real, the raw, and the mind of entrepreneurship. We have a treat for you guys today. We have none other than Mr. Chris Naugle. He's America's #1 money mentor, right? It's very important, right? We always talk about mindset on the podcast. We talk about strategies, business, tactics, marketing, and all kinds of things, right? But a lot of times we leave that financial aspect out of the picture. And he's got over 16 years of experience in Wall Street, right? And went from that, and now he's been part of 25 plus businesses throughout his career. I'm telling you, you're 44 years old and you've been 20, I mean, what are you doing, a business a year? Or
It's way too many. I mean, I feel like I'm just like stacking, LLCs and corporations. I look at I got them all up there, all the binders. I'm like, what am I doing? But each one of them has a function.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I mean, besides that, I mean, you had a show on HGTV, Risky Builders. I mean, that's a whole nother experience, right? I mean, people can aim for that in a lifetime. And it's the professional snowboarder. Like, how do you get it all in there? And still you come in.
I'm 44, so I've got a lot of time.
And succeed, because that's a key thing, right? We can throw spaghetti on the walls in a lot of places, but make it successful and actually have that success trail right behind us is a different story. So
see,
I'm very excited to have you here, man.
It's unique that you talk about succeeding, because I feel like, maybe I've succeeded a lot, but I really feel like my successes were my failures. I've failed so many stinking times. I've been self-employed since 16, so believe me, I've failed and failed and failed again, and it's very simple to understand how and why I've failed, but each one was a learning lesson.
Well, I guess as entrepreneurs, right? The old adage or the cliche, we don't fail, we learn.
When you're failing, it doesn't feel like learning now, does it?
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't feel like a nice learning lesson. It feels like a failure, right? But we build on those bricks. I think it's one of the skill sets that we pick up along the way, right? When you're in it, and you've been at it since you were 16, right? So give us a little bit of background on you. I mean, I know I hit some of the highlights and whatnot, but there's so much more.
There is. It starts just my upbringing. I grew up in a lower middle class family. My dad was an alcoholic, and my mom pretty much solely raised me. And it was a huge struggle for her. And I remember watching my mom struggle, and it was hard to see. But, it's kind of like my mom's struggle is what forged me, because the one thing she taught me was to be a dreamer. My mom never said, Chris, you can't do this. When I wanted to go out in the backyard and dig a pond, she never said, Chris, that's so silly. Why? She said, here's a shovel, go dig. When I wanted to build a BMX track or I wanted to do anything, she never ever said no. She said, how are you going to? Because we didn't have resources. My mom, I learned saving at a young age. My mom had a glass jar. And when we needed a lawnmower, this is the one that comes to mind, she would save all of her coins in this glass jar. And I witnessed this, and I watched this, and I helped her roll all those coins to the point where then the coins were enough to go buy the lawnmower. I'll never forget it, the first Craftsman lawnmower we had. So I took on that. My mom bought me this little box. I still have it today. It's a little black slide top box. And I'd go out and shovel driveways. I remember going to my grandmother's, she lived in a trailer park, and I would go around and clean windows. And they'd give me $5. But I always gave that money back to my mom. She put it in the box. Yeah. One big goal I had as a kid was I wanted a dirt bike. It started as a KX60. I was infatuated, and I was always artistic. So I didn't even know that this was how it works, but I would visualize things so much. I would draw them all day long. In school, I'd be drawing these things, and then I would visualize them at night of me actually doing it. It almost felt real, and then I wake up, and I'm like, damn, I don't have that thing. But one day my mother said to me, she said, Chris, let's go to Hebler's, which was a dirt bike shop, and let's look at dirt bikes. And I said, oh, okay, well, I can't buy it, but yeah, that's fun. Let's go. So we went, and I rode 2 bikes, and I picked one, and, I'm like, oh, this is great. It was just the best day ever. I didn't think I was leaving with anything. She said, well, what if you could have it right now? And I said, what do you mean? And she says, well, you've saved enough money to buy the bike. I just didn't want to tell you until you picked the one you wanted. So all that visualization, all that time came to that moment where then I had it. So I kind of had the formula.
Yeah.
I just carried that straight through. At 16, I worked at a restaurant that I hated. The guy degraded me so bad, I was clinically depressed. I mean, he literally made me feel like I could do nothing right. And that just, at a 16-year-old, that's how my life was. And I remember going in one day and I quit. And I didn't know at that time, but that was the day that I quit trading hours for dollars. And I came home and I said, Mom, I thought she was going to be mad. She wasn't. She was always very kind of consoling, and I said, Mom, I want to start a clothing line in the basement. I'm going to call it Fat Clothing Company, PHAT. This was in 1992, just to show my age a little. And that's where the first company started, Fat Clothing Company. I was an avid snowboarder and skateboarder.
What did it stand for? I'm just curious. Fat, P-H-A-T.
Back then, Fat was like cool, like
Yeah.
Fat Farm was like Russell Simmons. I came out before him, but he sent me a cease and desist, which we'll get to.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah, that's why the name changed. Yeah, we went from Fat Clothing, and I was doing really well. I was selling it across a bunch of snowboard, skateboard shops, and I didn't know this game, right? I was 16. I printed shirts with my art teacher, Mr. Mahalski, in school after, and then I put them in my backpack and I sold them. Then I built my team of friends. I'm like, hey, put some in your shirt and sell these to some people, and that's how we did it. A dozen shirts turned into
guerrilla style. I love it.
That's
Yeah,
how I did it. I didn't have any other way, and I didn't need a lot of money back then. I needed money to get to the snowboard hill, and I needed money to buy the equipment that I wanted to fulfill the next goal, which was to be a pro snowboarder. And I would take my clothes to all these shops, and I would just go in and I didn't know how to pitch. I didn't know how to be a salesman. I didn't know how to be a rep. I just told them, hey, I'm this guy. I'm trying to be a pro snowboarder. I got this clothing line. Can you carry some stuff? Started with consignment. Then they sold really well, and they started buying more. And then the dreaded day came when, I don't remember, I was probably 17 when I got the letter from Russell Simmons. And I went to my tiny little attorney who was a family friend. I said, hey, what do I do? And he said, you change your name.
you changed the name.
So then
you got to rebrand, homie.
Yeah, Lurkin Threads became. But the next thing I did is I was on my way to being a pro snowboarder, but Fat Clothing set the stage for entrepreneurship. But I'd see all these guys when I was traveling on these snowboard trips that owned their shops. And to me, that was like the perfect thing. Right? They go to their store, they sell exactly what they love. They're living and breathing what they do. And I said, I need that. So this idea came into my head that I had Fat Clothing and I was the man. So let's do a skateboard shop called Fat Man. And at 17, I came up with this idea and I brought a guy in and actually it ended up happening, but there's a lot. I never borrowed a lot of money and I didn't think it was hard. So I needed 70 grand to do this. And I remember going out to everyone in my family, everybody that had money, which was not many, my uncle. And they all told me I was crazy. They tried talking me off the ledge. My dad told me that was a stupid idea. Come work at the factory. I sent him Cats in the Cradle, and I still cry when I hear that song. And then my mother saw this dream dying. And I had one chance. I had a bank say, we'll give you an SBA-backed loan, but we need collateral in the amount of the loan. I'm like, oh, okay, I got a 1986 Buick, got a snowboard, I got a KX 125, and I got this baseball card collection.
Yeah.
Cool.
Done.
No. So my mom saw this, and my mom came to me. I don't remember exactly how it happened, but she said to me, she said, how bad do you want to do this? And I said, more than anything in the world. And she said, what's it going to take? And I said, they said collateral. And she said, wow, we have the house. She said, we have the house. Now, my mom got the house in the divorce. It had exactly $75,000 in equity. In equity back then. It just almost paid off. Now, you got to remember, I grew up in a 700 square foot, 2-bedroom house, in a small little town called Lockport. My mother, at that moment, put the only thing she had in the world on the line so her punk snowboard kid could chase his dream. I didn't even think twice. I just went at it. And, that was November of 1994. We opened the doors of Fat Man board shops. So that was like my first big victory in this. And the funny thing about Fat Man board shops, anyone listening, like Google it, Fat Man board shops, still open today. My legacy has lived on. I sold the store in 2010, but they are still thriving. It is still one of the core skateboard, snowboard shops in the industry. And it's the one I started from my mom's basement. Yeah.
Isn't that amazing, man? To see something that just carries on after you step away from it. I mean, you give something a whole different life.
So it's kind of a love-hate. It's kind of like it was my baby for so many years of my life. It was everything of my life, and I became a pro snowboarder, and I had the lifestyle that I'd always dreamed about until the .com crash hit and things changed, which we'll talk about, but. Yeah, it's interesting to go in there today. It's interesting to see the new buyers that bought it. I feel like it ripped a part of me out, but it actually set me on the stage and pivoted me to where I actually was supposed to be.
Well, I mean, it comes down to the space that we're playing in, right? A lot of times, it's gonna be uncomfortable to create that comfort zone at the beginning, right? As an entrepreneur, it's amazing and it's beautiful to see that you had that backing, that you had that faith, that blind faith, carried through love that your mom showed. It's hard to see as a 16-year-old too, like what that means, right? I mean, I don't know if you saw it or something, but I would have probably missed it. I was,
I
I would
probably
have
missed
thought like, you know what, it's just a house, whatever. I'm looking at this business and the potential. So I don't. That's how I would have probably processed it. Is that what you did? I mean,
So
when it came
I
down to
think I think
mindset,
at first I was
did you see
so
the magnitude of it from
I
her
do
side? I
now,
guess.
and
Yeah.
I don't think that became real.
Mm.
What happened? I think just the dream was actually happening.
Yeah.
That was the realest thing, and that was the most gratifying thing at the time. But there were many nights in that store early on, like 95, 96, where I remember crying myself to sleep on
Oh, yeah.
boxes in the back room, wondering how I was going to make the payment to the bank
Yeah.
and how I was going to afford the UPS shipments. Back then, UPS came and you gave them cash, and if I didn't have merchandise, I had nothing to sell. And I started thinking, wow, if I fail, my mom loses the house.
Yeah.
And that simply just was a non-negotiable.
It's not an option.
Not even.
Not an option.
And I mean, that was where it became real. Those hard times where I was like, I can't. If I lose this, my mom loses the only thing she has.
Man, that's fire, right? That's fuel right there, if anything. Now fast forward, so you went through that stage and really got your. Once you get the entrepreneur bug, and you see some level of result, you see some level of success, right? Even if it's just a little bit or whatever, however big the mindset is, right, at that point. But it's almost like tasting that that first blood, and it's impossible to go back. It's like something breaks. I can relate to what you were saying in terms of seeing the company and having somebody else take over. I own a transportation business, and I sold that in 2014 or 15, I think it was. But I see it. I see the vehicles going around. I mean, they doubled the fleet. They're doing. I mean, there's hundreds of employees now in that business, so it's going right. And I see it. I was like, man, I started that from that little apartment in the living room, and it's evolved. So it's like a love hate, because they switched the logo. They did a couple of things like, no, that's ugly. I don't like it. But somebody else's passage, right? But at the end of the day, it's a legacy.
Absolutely.
So so how does that plug into? I mean, you started snowboarding, became a professional snowboarder.
Yeah, for a long time.
And I mean, you had success there, and you mentioned the .com. How did that impact you, or what switched? Like what was the progression?
So I was living the perfect life, right? I didn't have a lot of money. We didn't make a lot with the shops, but I was living that lifestyle. And the pro snowboarding career was just a lifelong dream come true. Until the .com crash hit, I'll never forget. I'd just gotten back in Buffalo from California. I was at a trade show. And I remember driving to my brand new store. We just opened up in Orchard Park. It was our third store at the time. And I remember driving there, hearing about this plane that hit the towers. And I didn't know what it meant, but obviously we all now know what happened. Yeah. And that then set off the first recession that I can actually remember. I mean, the .com crash was the first time I ever watched things go the other direction. Yeah. And I didn't know what that meant. I'd never been through a recession, much like many people today. Most people don't know what a recession is. They just know good times. Well, that was me. Sign right there. So I remember my business tanked 30%. I was highly leveraged at this point because we just opened this new store. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to have to get a job. I have to kind of step off of this perfect journey, and I have to now get a job. So the easiest thing for me, and I thought long and hard, my friend Mike worked for Little Caesars Pizza delivering. And he made okay money back then. It was good money. So I'm like, Mike, get me an interview. So they did, and they just weren't hiring delivery drivers. I'm like, oh, no way, because, the recession. Yeah. And I put my resume out, and the only people that called me back were Wall Street firms. Listen, I can't tell you why. Sometimes you just have to step back and just realize the universe is far more powerful.
Wow.
And I thought of myself.
You were going for pizza delivery.
Yeah,
you got pulled to Wall Street.
I got pulled to Wall Street. Now, remember my first interview. Now, I was a snowboard and skateboard kid. I'd never put a suit on in my life. My grandmother took me to this shop called Lurch and Daly and got me my first suit with a zip-up tie. And I remember I go into this interview, I was so nervous. I didn't interview. And I remember sitting down at this huge boardroom table. I'm at the end, and the guy walks in at the other end. I'm like, that's odd. And he's standing the whole time, and I'm sitting. And he's just going on talking about the firm and money and money, money. And I remember he takes his keys, and I think it was a Porsche, and he slides the keys down the table. He probably obviously saying this in a movie. And he says, if you work at this firm, that's what you can expect. I'm like, sign me up, dude. So that was my first. I only stayed there for a short time, and I ended up going to a much larger firm because I realized it was like a boiler room kind of setup there. But I remember I that's where I entered Wall Street. And let me just kind of speak about that because it was a mindset change for me. I went from snowboard, skateboard kid to now I'm suit, Wall Street, in the bullpen, looking at all these multi-million-dollar advisors around the edge. But I started to.
Well, it's bootstrapped to corporate. I mean,
Yeah.
right out like
It's about as corporate as you can get.
exactly.
Yes, but I remember sitting in that bullpen. You go through the whole training, which is a nightmare, getting all the licenses. And I remember I'm ready to go, and I'm sitting there, and I'm watching these guys on the outside who I knew were the top guys. You know, you look up to them. They'd get in about 9:30. They'd leave for lunch for 2 hours. They'd come back, and they were gone by 4:30. Gone. And I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking, you know what? If I want one of those offices, all I got to do is everything that they're unwilling to do. I got to get here at 7, get the stuff done. I got to work through lunch and call people because people actually answer during lunch. And after they leave, I pound the phones, and then I go see people at their kitchen table. In doing that, that was 2003 that I entered Wall Street. I became one of the top 3 advisors in mid-2000s. We'll call it 2006 and 7. I was crushing it.
Wow.
I went from maybe my best year as a pro snowboarder making 40 grand, and I remember my pay for the shop I think was $500 a week. So you can see like that's just what I made. It didn't matter. To now I made my first year in Wall Street 74,000. The next year double digits, and then it just went up from there. So it was a whole new world, but it also changed me, and I don't think it changed me all for the better because obviously now I'm with the big guy in the office. So I started flipping houses in 06. 07 I did another one, and I started having all the things. Up to this point, I was a simple life. I lived in apartments.
So you started flipping, and you got into real estate while you were still in Wall Street.
2006, right? And I did it, and I'll explain how. Yeah. But I mean, all I did is I watched all my biggest clients. I was very astute because I never had money. So I was intrigued by what do these guys do?
How does it work? Yeah.
Yeah. And what I found is every single one of them, not one or two, all of them were in real estate. And I started thinking to myself, what in the hell am I missing here? So what do you do when you start getting curious? Well, you call your realtor. Hey, Anas, can you find me a house to flip? I saw it on a TV show. Yeah. So we bought this dilapidated farmhouse out in nowhere land. And me and my best friend, Mike, the Little Caesars guy, took on the project of flipping the first house. It was a total disaster, but we talked about that in the car. Yeah. And then I did another one in 07.
It's a rite of passage, yeah, almost.
Yeah. And it was interesting because I started learning a lot. You know, I didn't know banks. My first house I bought, they gave me like 95% of the money I needed. But when I bought this investment house, I didn't even know that banks would only give me 80%. That's how green I was, man. And I went to the bank and they approved the mortgage, and I'm like, wait, something's wrong with this number. Like that's not the amount that I need this. And they're like, yeah, this is an investment property. You're not living there. I'm like, yeah, so? Well, we can only give you 80%. And I'm thinking, oh my God, where am I going to get the rest? Because as much money as I made in Wall Street, I spent a lot. I was in that category where many people are now. I felt rich. So when you feel rich, you go out and you spend money.
You spend rich, yeah.
Driving the fancy car. You know,
it's a very different. Rich is not the same as wealthy.
Oh, big time. Yeah. Wealth and rich are two different things because the wealthy figured out how to keep their money. Right. I was rich.
The mindset is different. The strategies are different. It's just insane,
so that's how I got into real estate, and you know that takes me right up to 2008, and I made a big plunge. In 2008, my main retail store, my main Fat Man store, the lease came due, and he raised my rent. And I remember thinking, you son of a,
yeah.
I looked 2 buildings down. There was this for sale sign for this dilapidated paint store. I mean, it was trashed. And I said, you know what? I can convert that. I knew a guy who did construction. I said, can we make this into a strip mall? Can we put a couple storefronts, and I'll have the storefronts pay for the mortgage, and I can be rent free with a brand new fancy 4,000 square foot shop.
Yeah. Stick it to the landlord.
Stick it to the landlord. I did just that. Borrowed money from a hard money lender, somebody I shouldn't have borrowed money from. Bought that strip mall, and then you know what happened next. 2008, the Great Recession hit me, and it hit me like a freaking Mack truck. It hit me so hard, I didn't see it coming. I should have known this. Should have been astute to this. I'm an advisor. Like, how could I not have seen this? Problem number one. So I literally got to be, I'll never forget the day. I got down to where I looked at all my accounts. My 401k was already, I loaned it all out, trying to carry this. I had one more payment to this guy. And I knew if I didn't pay him, he wasn't just going to take the property. He was a very bad man. He would have probably taken a leg or a finger.
Something else with it, yeah.
Yeah, so I came home to my girlfriend, who was the token girlfriend at that time. Hey, pro snowboarder, retail shop, big Wall Street guy. You get a nice girl. Yeah. And I came home to her and I said, sweetie, I was back against the wall. I said, sweetie, I need your help. I need your help paying the mortgage. I need your help paying the utilities. And by the way, my friend Pete is going to move into that bedroom, and my other friend Jessica's going to move in. Any questions? I guess I had a bit of arrogance. I thought I got about a 50-50 shot of her sticking around.
Yeah.
My friends later told me, dude, you had less than a 10% shot.
Wow.
But I think she kind of liked me. I mean, you know, you just saw my daughter. We've been married for a long time now, and we have a 20-month.
Oh, wow.
it's the
So,
same
okay.
girl.
So she stuck through it.
It's just so funny. You know, we just did the FaceTime with my daughter saying goodnight. She
Super
stuck through
cute.
it. Yeah. And that's how I made it through that period.
Man.
Yeah. I was at a very low point in my life. It was the first time I'd lost everything. And I just kept charging at it. And in 2009, Warren Buffett's my hero, just for the record. I study everything he does. I study all of his books, and I was back then too. And he said something. He said, buy low, sell high, and don't lose money. Well, in 2009, I knew one thing. Real estate was on sale. So I dove back in, man. In 2009 to 14, I bought apartment buildings. I spent every waking second that I wasn't working Wall Street or my shops, I spent it trying to figure out how to rehab apartment units. And me and my best friend Mike, we did it, and I got up to 36 units by the time 2014 rolled around. I felt like I was on top of the world. It was tough.
Yeah.
And I was broke because every penny I made, guess what?
Went back into real estate.
Back into real estate. I scaled quick. And then this is where my whole life took a tragic turn. I mean, up to 14, a couple of big things happened. I had sold the retail stores. After 08, I couldn't do it all. So something had to go. So I sold the shops to a friend, a guy that I used to compete against. And then in 2014, I sold the strip mall. But the strip mall was sold because of what actually happened. You see, when I was borrowing all this money for these apartment buildings, I was borrowing it in my personal name. I never knew that eventually there was a cap for that. And I hit that. I hit that debt ceiling, and the bank froze my line of credit. I got behind in payments. They called one of my mortgages. I didn't know that bank was selling to a big conglomerate, so they were motivated to get rid of risky drivers like me. And those 36 units that I had acquired, I had to sell all of them. But then with that, I had to sell the dream house that me and Larissa had bought. I had to sell the Audis that I had in the garage. I had to sell my bedroom set. This is the lowest point in my life. Larissa and me split. I mean, financial times are tough. We split. I started living in one of my apartment buildings. I hit one of the lowest points where you literally look at yourself in the mirror and you say, do I even deserve to be here? I'm a failure. I can't do anything right. And, in those failures, like we talked earlier, those are the biggest lessons. But in that point in time, man, I don't ever want to go back there ever again. And I'll never forget, man, I got a postcard in the mail. Seriously, how it all ended. I got a postcard in the mail from somebody we were just talking about, actually, Dave. To come to this 3-day event. And I said, I don't want to go learn how to flip houses. But I flipped it over, and on the back it said, come and we'll give you a free iPod shuffle. I'm like, well, I have been running. Can't afford an iPod shuffle, so might as well go and get one.
Yeah.
And I went
It's
there.
free.
Yeah, and this is, remember, I'm still an advisor. And I went and I heard two very successful guys, Mike and Greg, get on stage. And when they got up, they were talking about money. So I perk up. I even had a suit on. I'm like, I'm going to this with a suit on because that's what I did in Wall Street. And I heard them talking about money. And everything they talked about was the complete opposite of everything I knew to be true in money.
Wow.
Everything. And I remember thinking after, I'm like, someone's lying. They're lying, trying to sell something, which is where I first went. Or I've been lied to all these years of my life. And, well, kind of fast forward, they taught me what I do today. They taught me how to be the bank. I remember the one word, Greg stood up there and he said, the ultimate in real estate is being the bank. So at this point, to me, I had no idea what that meant, but to me that meant I got to flip a lot of houses, make millions of dollars, and then I can become the bank and lend this millions out and then ride off in whatever you want
into the sunset, yeah.
Yeah, and that's not what Greg meant, but that's how I took it. So I started flipping houses. Me and my wife, she worked for the bank, and I was basically in Wall Street, and then we were flipping houses. Started with one, then two, and then eventually got so busy that Larissa had to quit her big girl bank job. Father almost disowned her because he was her boss. And we started full-time flipping. And I was still doing the Wall Street thing, but I definitely was kind of easing back a little bit on it. Starting to question, should I be in Wall Street? Because now I'd actually, you got to get one big thing that happened. Remember, I started working with Greg and Mike, and I started seeing some truths about money, some things that were real that I'd never been shown in Wall Street. And I started questioning everything in Wall Street, started questioning money, because these wealthy guys and all their friends that I'd been surrounding myself with through this journey, they were all doing completely different things I didn't understand until 2014 when it first came to me. And it came in Salt Lake City. I was out there. I don't know what I was doing, probably snowboarding. And Mike and me met at
Park City,
well, we were just in Salt Lake City. I was riding snowboard. Me and Mike, who was that guy, who was very wealthy, and he had been lending me some money, sat down at a Cheesecake Factory, and I just asked him, I said, Mike, how do you do all this work? How do you lend this much money? And he said, my private bank. I'm like, oh, you dirty dog. You got yourself a bank, don't you? And he says, no, I don't.
You inherited from
Yeah,
somebody.
I'm like, how'd you get a bank, man? Which one? Can I go to it? Let's go
born
see your
rich.
bank. Like, we don't need to even eat lunch. And he says to me, he says, no, I don't own a bank. I have a banking system that was set up. And I said, what do you, okay, I'm intrigued now. And he starts telling me about this. And I'll never forget the moment. Remember, I keep saying this. I'm an advisor because I thought I knew what I didn't know. And I remember he leans in and he says, well, the private bank is a whole life policy, especially designed and engineered whole life. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, dude, Mike, listen, bud, I'm the Wall Street guy here. Whole life doesn't work that way. There's no way it works anything like what you just described. So what is it you really got? He says, no, I have a whole life that was designed for banking. He said, this isn't new. And now I felt dumb. I said, all right, teach me. And he said, I can't.
Yeah, it'll get you to pay attention, yeah.
Oh, I was so intrigued at this point, but I was so skeptical because everything I'd always known about whole life is it's a terrible place to put your money in the capacity of how he was explaining it. Great life insurance, terrible place to store your capital. And he says, you got to call this Brent guy. So I called Brent immediately. I think I probably got in the car and I probably dialed Brent. And Brent picks up and I said, oh my God, I just met with Mike. He told me about this privatized banking thing, the infinite banking concept. Like, I need to meet with you. I need to hear about this. He says, great. Well, I'm glad you're excited. Now, I'm an advisor. Of course, I threw that out there. And he says, great. Well, have you watched the video? And I'm like, what video? He said, the 90-minute video. It's a you have to watch that before we can do a call. And I said, Brent, I get this. I'm an advisor. I don't need to watch some dumb 90-minute video. I'm busy here,
I'm not
man.
going to waste my time.
And he said, you watch the video and we'll do a call. I remember that Sunday. I reluctantly walked to my basement with a giant cup of coffee. I hit play. I don't know how to explain what happened, but 90 minutes felt like 15, maybe not even. 4 pages of note, never touched the coffee. My life changed at that moment because I literally saw the one thing I'd been searching for my entire life about money is I saw the truth and I saw what all the wealthy families in history, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the J.P. Morgans, the Walt Disneys, the Ray Krocs, God, I could keep going, right up to the sitting president today, all use this same system that this guy Mike and this guy Greg did through this guy Brent.
That's incredible. I mean, that's crazy, right? Especially coming from that mindset where money is limited. And then you come across, you go through this journey, and I mean, it's amazing, the journey that you just walked us through. You start in humble beginnings. You get, to the point where, okay, you're making ends meet and build this, start building this dream. I think one of the capacity to dream is one of the biggest things, right? And progressively get to, bigger places, Wall Street, and then now you hit this, other opportunity. The financial thermostat, a lot of times it's strongly set and it's hard to shift. Did you have that struggle? Is that something that happened? I mean, as far as the ability to believe and get there? Yeah, because dreaming is one thing. Believing, though, it's completely different, right?
It was very hard. Very hard. I don't even know how to really explain the difficulties and bringing your dreams to make them happen.
Yeah.
But I also think the different thing is when everything we've been taught our whole life is all of a sudden in one moment challenged. That pivot, that mind, I'm not gonna swear, but that mind F really
you can
that mind fuck was very difficult for me because I had spent at that point 14 years in Wall Street, one of the top guys, and this thing that I just heard about had never been taught to me. I had heard things about banks doing this thing called BOLI, but I'd never known what it was and how it could ever apply to individuals. The banks do it, but that's not anything we can do. And when I saw this, I literally was never the same because this is 14. So I stayed in Wall Street until 2018. But that firm that I was with, that I was one of the top guys, I had a huge pension. I got paid thousands of dollars before I even got out of bed every single month just because of my production and my clients. And all of a sudden now, the only thing I could think about is how do I leave this firm? And what I was seeking and searching for was a small firm, small boutique, either an investment banking firm or a small firm that I could go to where I'd have more freedom and I could pursue this new learning and pursue the real estate side. So I did. I actually, in 2016, left that firm. And that was hard because I knew that I couldn't just tell people, hey, I'm leaving. I had to break. I had to literally back a truck up, a U-Haul, one Saturday morning and load my truck. So my business partner in the firm didn't, know about this. And of course, what Saturday? He never showed up on Saturdays. He shows up. And I had to tell him, I'm sorry, I'm leaving. I'm going to this small firm. I need to own my own business. I need to have more freedom to do my real estate and everything else. And I remember after that, everybody in the company, because they all knew what I made, was just like, you are absolutely, did something happen?
It's crazy.
You're crazy.
Yeah.
You're leaving this much money. When you retire, you're gonna be able to just do nothing, and you're leaving. But sometimes the calling is greater than the financial reward, and the money at that point wasn't the thing. So I went from making, I think that year in Wall Street, I made about $300,000, and I left to this new firm making $40,000. That was my base. And then from there, I could bring clients over and go up. But I never made more than, I think, $90,000 at this new firm because I just wasn't there. I had seen something that I had to pursue, and it wasn't what I was doing. And I felt like I was doing a disservice to my clients. I truly did.
The power of the dream, it's something very real, right? It'll draw your actions. It'll get you to do stuff that you don't even believe you're capable of. It'll also take away that mental peace because it's there. It's there. So you're going through all this stuff. Obviously, at this point, you're a very capable person. You have a trail of success behind you in multiple different industries and whatnot. I mean, you've had a lot of real estate and businesses and how was this shift? And what you're talking about is so the whole, and this is foreign to me, right? I don't understand it. I understand the maybe at a superficial level. That's what I get.
Sure.
But how do you build wealth through a tool, through a vehicle like this, like you have?
So it's not even just the vehicle. So let's start with the problem and the lie everybody's been taught. And I'm going to pull some money in my wallet because I'm going to give an example to everybody that's watching, and I'll talk this through as I do it. 50, I don't know, whatever. We'll do that. So the whole idea of everything that I teach today is not some magic machine, not some magic product. It's not some hocus pocus thing. It's a process. But first and foremost, the process involves you to change one thing, and that is you have to take back control of your money. Everybody your whole life has been taught to give up control. All I ever told clients to do in practice as an advisor is give me your money. Let me manage your money. For some reason, I'm more capable because my license is and because I'm this big guy with a fancy suit in the BMW.
That thing on the wall says so.
Yeah, look at the plaques on the wall. Give up control of your money. And I did 401ks, and I was taught to believe, oh my God, put your money in the 401k so that someday you'll have enough to retire. Everything I did and was taught was to give up control. And that's what I told my clients. The change people have to make is they have to take back the control. But this is where the part is super simple, but super complicated. Go ahead.
What do you mean by giving up control of your money? I mean, it's clarify that for us.
So what are we brought up through school and college and everything to do? We're told to go to work.
Yeah.
You work and you put a monetary value on your time. I'm worth $100 an hour, and then all of a sudden you're making $100 an hour. Now you're worth $200 an hour. You exchange time.
One in, one out, yeah.
Time for dollars, right? But what do you do when you make money? Where does it go first? Somebody else's bank. Bank of America, Wells Fargo, whatever bank you bank at, you put your money in the bank. Now, that's just because you've been pre-programmed to think that that's what you should do. But then once the money's there, does the bank take your money and put it in a little box with your name on it and store it in that vault? No. The bank takes your $100 that you just gave them, that they now pay you next to nothing. They take it and they give it to those people in the cubicles to move. They send that money out to work for you or work for the bank. That's my money. I worked for this money. But you see, I hadn't learned how to make my money work for me. I gave up control of the money to the bank or to Wall Street or to the 401k where somebody else sends my money out to work. And by doing that, banks, Wall Street, they make a spread.
Yeah.
Okay? So in doing the take back control, so we got to stop giving control up to somebody else. Like today, regardless of what I make, I try to never, ever have more than $10,000 in a bank account. People think that's crazy. Well, what do? Well, I learned to change one thing. I changed where my money went first. So the money that I would normally save, not the money that I would spend, okay? The money that I keep. And law number one of money or of wealth is you always need to keep 1/10 of your gross income. That's a law, okay? Not my opinion. I take that money that I used to save and I change where it goes. And I take it and I put it over here into that thing that I learned about, which is called privatized banking, or the infinite banking concept is the process. So what is that thing? It is the one thing that I already told you. It is a specially designed and engineered whole life, which is exactly where banks put their tier one capital. Banks are the number one purchasers of what we're talking about. Look it up. It's called BOLI. So
It's called what?
BOLI.
BOLI.
B-O-L-I. Bank-owned life insurance. They own, I just looked this up and I should have this. I think it's like $94 billion. The top banks, not all the banks, but just the top banks have that money in BOLI, which is specially designed and engineered whole life. The one thing that most people have been told not to put their money in. Because this whole life that I put my money in here, this money that I save, is not what you think. It's not a life insurance plan in the general sense of what life insurance is. It is designed and engineered to work for banking. So let me explain how this works. It's very simple. So I just changed and I put $100. So everybody that is listening, I changed one thing. I took the $100 that I made and I now put it into my own bank. And just for the record, my bank now is a specially designed and engineered whole life. But then, let's just say an opportunity. I'm going to go out and I'm going to buy a piece of real estate. I then save enough in my bank. I then take a loan from my bank, okay? So I take this $100, just pretend it's 100, it could be 100,000, doesn't matter. I take this 100 out of my bank and I then go invest that money in real estate, or I make a private loan to somebody, or whatever, crypto, anything, whatever your flavor is. So now, how much money's left in my bank? I had 100 in there and I took 100 out. What's left? Seems like a trick question, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You're thinking,
Well, I mean, you put 100 in, you took 100 out.
Right.
I'm assuming the 100's out, so.
Yeah. Because that's how a bank would work. That's how Wall Street would work.
Yeah, you put money in, if you spend it, money's gone.
The $100 is still in my account, earning a guaranteed interest rate plus dividends. So whose $100 is this sitting over here in the real estate? It's the insurance companies. See, this is what the Rockefellers knew. This is what the Rothschilds knew. This is what all these wealthy families understood. They can earn uninterrupted compound interest with these mutually owned insurance companies and still have access and control to use that money whenever they want for whatever they want. But so people are like, that sounds too good to be true. I hear that every day. That's too good to be true. Not really. Let me explain how. It's very easy to understand. I put $100 in to a whole life insurance policy designed backwards, okay? And then I take that 100 out as a loan. The insurance company makes me a loan of $100. And that loan, what money was that? Because this loan technically never has to be paid back. Doesn't make any sense. Why would the insurance company give you a loan that technically never has to be paid back? Well, because the insurance company also promised me two things. Number one, to pay a guaranteed interest rate. And number two, to pay a death benefit the day I die. So the insurance company gladly will give me $100 from my death benefit that they have to pay someday in the future right now. And in doing that, they charge me an interest rate. By today's standards, let's call it 4%. It just changed. It used to be 5, now it's about 4.25, but we'll call it 4. So I got $100 that I got to pay 4% interest back to the company. And most people are like, well, that's stupid. You're saving money, but you're paying interest on it?
Yeah.
My $100 is still in that account earning 6% when I'm able to use it at 4. What's my spread? 2.
Yeah, you have that too.
Okay. So now I got money that I can use that I'm making a spread on, just like the banks. Hence, like I said, the bank makes a spread, just like the banks. And now that money's making money. So this real estate deal is then kicking off rent. I'm just going to use that, or lending it. And we'll call that $50. So now I got $50 that my money working for me just made. Plus I'm making the spread over here on the policy.
2% compound interest.
That's correct, but it's going to go up. Because remember, how does compounding work? Money on top of money on top of money. It just keeps going up perpetually. Yeah. This is uninterrupted because now I can access the money without interrupting the cash, the compounding. So now I'm making money twice, but now I'm going to take the money that I make from my investment, my real estate deal, and I have a choice. I can take this $50, I can put it in somebody else's bank again and forget everything I learned. Or I can say, no. My money is working for me, producing offspring, which is this rent.
Yeah.
I'm going to take this rent and I'm going to put it back in my bank as a loan repayment for the $100 I just took out. And then eventually I recoup all the money that investment made. Then what I got to do is now I got even more money, because now I've got the interest in the spread plus the money that my money made by working for me. I now need to move that money again, because the bank would never leave money sitting in the vault. It's got to move it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this money and I'm going to go buy a car. I'm going to pay cash for a car. But I'm not going to stop there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to find out from that dealership, how much would this car have cost me per month? Call it $500, okay? All right, great. I'm going to set up a bill pay for $500, and I'm going to have that $500 pay back into my policy every month. I then now found a way to get all the money back for every single car that I ever buy, drive, and own. While doing that, I'm building wealth.
Plus that positive interest that you're gaining and the compound, right?
Yep, we're not even
wow,
talking about
that's
that.
insane. That's crazy.
How many times can you do this over and over before your wealth explodes? Well, I will tell you, it takes a long time. So building wealth is a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Right.
People that try to get wealthy fast, it's called getting rich, and you'll be broke. Everybody is. Okay, it tries to play that game. This is a slow build because you got to capitalize your bank. Then you got to find ways to make your money work. Then you got to roll the money back. It's a circle. My money starts on the left side in my bank, comes over here to the right side to go to work for me. Then the labor of my money working for me produces offspring, interest, dividends, and gains, and then I move it back into my bank. I repeat the process, and I just keep moving that money over and over. And while all that money's moving, my money never stops earning uninterrupted compound interest. And just so happens that all the money I make in the compounding is tax-free, because that's what the wealthy, understand about life insurance. It's all tax-free. Plus, it's got a legacy. Plus, it's protected against judgments and liens. I mean, I could keep going, but it just all of a sudden starts sounding way too good to be true, but it isn't. It's been done this way for hundreds of years.
It sounds like a safe box. So what does that look like? And I'm curious.
Now you're probably like I was in that.
Yeah, like what? I mean, this is something. Again, I've heard about it, but it's not. I never even looked at it because it's just. It feels like, you know what I mean? It's not.
Feels scammy. Feels wrong.
It does, and it feels like it just feels different. It feels foreign. It feels completely. It's not the way that even NFTs and all that stuff. It's different. It's not real estate. It's not tangible. I can't hold it. I can't touch it. You know what I mean? So anything like that, it's bound, at least in my head, the way that I process it, it's bound to, okay, cool. I'm gonna have some apprehension against it, and yeah, but it. How long, I guess, I don't know, to put into context or something, when you're talking compound, if somebody's compounding, I don't know, say $100,000 for 10 years, what does that look like?
A lot. But it's not just the compounding that matters. Remember, I can put the money in the policy, but you'd have to be excited about making 6% on your money to just leave it there. And that would be stupid. Don't come to me for that. Like, it's not what we do. The goal is you're making that uninterrupted. Then we're going to move it and we're going to make it go work. How much money can you make in real estate? You already know the answer. How much money can you make by being the bank and lending your money out to people like you? So 12, Devin gets 15%.
Yeah.
Right? So pay him or give him the money, Devin pays me 15%. Now all of a sudden all that money comes back to the wealth, which is my policy. And I just keep moving it. So if somebody had a chunk of money and they wanted to dump it into the policy, they can. And it starts changing the dynamic. So I'm speaking Sunday at Scale and Escape. And in my presentation, I have a real plan, like a plan design like I'm talking about, for a 39-year-old that's putting $50,000 into his plan as what they call it a dump in. It's just a one-time shot. And then he's doing $58.65 a year. Okay, it's a small plan. By the second year, he puts $58.95 in the plan. The first year, he puts the 50 in plus the 55. He takes out 51 and he sends it there. Notice how he couldn't take 55 out. He could only take 51 in the first year. Some people look at that and like, that sucks. I put 55 in and I only had access to 51. Building wealth is a marathon.
Yeah,
the first
it's not going
year
to happen.
Is the worst year. No, but some people will stop right there because like, well, that sucks. The bank gives me 100%. No, they don't. Bullshit. COVID, you couldn't even take your money out. But
what's the percentage right now they're paying on interest? Have you seen that? Have you seen that little 0.00001 number? That's interest you make when you leave the money in the bank. It's not a business.
So I'll just give you a real example. So we put 85 in, and we could only take 51 out the first year. But that 51's now out working for me, making interest that I put back in for this client.
Yeah.
The second year, he puts 5,800 and change into the policy. How much money do you think he can take out in the second year?
58. Well, it dropped by 4,000, so I'm thinking 54.
What do you mean it dropped by 4,000?
Well, you had 55 in and then took out 51.
Yeah. But just the 58, because remember the 51's already out working. Forget about the inefficiency of the 8% or whatever it is. The second year, I got $58.95. I just deposited that into my private bank. How much of that do you think I can take out with the compounding?
No clue.
Over 7,000. So I just deposited 58, and that client can now take 7,800 or 7,000 and change. I don't know the exact number out to go do something. That is over a 20% cash on cash return. Yeah. So many people count cumulative because they think their money's got to sit to make money. Remember, I put that money in. Every time I make a deposit in, I can use that money immediately in the first 30 days. Might not be 100% of the money like the first year, but I can use it immediately. So I'm going to get that money out and make it move and make it work. The second year, told you 7. The third year, more than it was the second year. The fourth year, more. Because, listen, compounding And what we're talking about, it's just mathematics. Albert Einstein called it the eighth wonder of the world. He said, those that understand it, earn it. I just told you how to earn it. Those that don't, pay it.
And
People I'm lending money to.
brother, we hear that so often. Okay, yeah, compound. And the idea of compounding, especially like, for example, somebody in real estate or in business in general, right? It's come in and then creating a profit and then just making more, something like, for example, doing a flip, getting money out from that profit, coming in and doing another flip, and then that's compounding, right? But this is a machine. This is automatic. That's not passive, by any means. It's a whole different, type of business plan, type of a ball game.
So now you can see why I was having such a difficult time.
Yeah.
Because I just saw this. First thing I thought, that sounds too good to be true. This can't be. I wasn't an advisor for at that point 14 years and never learned this. But most people would say, well, Chris, then how come advisors don't know this? They're not taught this. Well, why wouldn't they teach this? If this is so good, how come my advisor doesn't know about this? How come my insurance agent doesn't? Let me ask you a question. If right now you had something that was so valuable for people that you could take it to give it to them, but there was a cost for you to do that, so valuable you could change people's lives, but you had to take a cut in your pay, your salary had to be cut 60 to 90%, would you be able to do that?
I'm a giver, so I don't know. I get stupid about things like that.
I bet you most of your listeners would say, holy cow, you want me to cut my pay by 90% just to help other people?
Yeah.
Why your advisor doesn't know this is the way that these are designed requires the commission to be cut up to 90%. Advisors can't take a 90% cut in pay. I couldn't have when I was an advisor.
Yeah.
If somebody told me about this as an advisor, I would be like, oh my God, this is awesome. And then they'd be like, well, here's the commission. Ooh, that's not so awesome. I'm not going to tell anyone about this because I don't want to take a 90% cut. I want the big old commissions I got on the regular whole life, and I got big old commissions on those VULs, and today they're IULs. Garbage. But
so, and I mean, this is applicable anywhere, or is there like limitations to the way that you can use your money or your loan, your wealth?
no. It's
crazy.
completely private, so there's no reporting at the end of the year, and you can take the loan for anything you want. The insurance company will never ask you what you
See, when you as entrepreneurs, like we'll try to look at tax strategies. We'll try, anything that just kind of makes things make sense, right? Come in and then, okay, how can I, improve my financial wellness altogether? And this is the kind of stuff that's very obscure. It's not out there. It's not mainstream, conversations.
No, not at all. There's very few people talking about this because it pays like crap.
Yeah.
The reason we're
wow.
so successful is we figured out that we can teach this to thousands of people. We right now have about 4,600 clients, and we add about 300 to 500 a month. It's scale. I don't even know what I get paid on these when I do them. It's very small. Per 10,000, it's about $387 I make in a commission. You know how many policies I would have to sell as an advisor to make a living doing that?
Yeah.
Too many. But the way we're set up and the way we do this now is we do thousands of them. So in scale is how we make good money.
Wow.
And we help an awful lot of people. Somebody's got to give for somebody else to get. That's the cardinal law of the universe. I just chose to start giving. You're a giver too, so you can respect that.
Go giver mentality, man. I mean, it's doesn't just work at a personal level, right?
No.
Business is the same thing.
Yeah.
We talk about that on the podcast all the time. Having that giver mentality, and it really, I don't know if it's just divine reciprocity when you start operating that way, or what it is, but it clicks.
Right.
Things click. So going back to, and this is an amazing vehicle. I mean, I definitely want to figure out where we can find out more about it. And
Watch
you
the
have
same
links
90-minute video I watch. That's how you learn.
You got to give us some
I've
routing
got
on
about
that.
500 of them in YouTube that you can watch, case studies and everything. But anyway.
You got to give us some insight on that stuff. How can somebody start getting on the path to wealth, not riches? A lot of times, I mean, we deal with the hustle, right? Our audience, for example, it's we have people who are bootstrapping, and then we have people who are well off. So it's a very dynamic range. But making money is one thing. Keeping money is a whole different thing. Creating wealth, I mean, that's really taking things to a whole nother level, right? You're talking mental aptitude. You're talking financial IQ. You're talking, being savvy about strategies and stuff that's out there that you can come in and apply to your businesses, to your personal strategies as you build, to your discipline.
Like a lot of work, man.
Wait, I'm telling you.
Oh, I don't want to do that. I'm going to have somebody else do that.
Yeah.
Restart the cycle. Now you're giving up control.
Take control of the cash.
Do you want me to tell you exactly how you build wealth?
Yeah.
Break
it down.
It's very simple, but it's very hard. You ever done something simple that's hard?
Yeah.
Here's why it's hard. It's hard because it's completely different than everything you've been taught. I'm writing my 4th book right now, and it's a working title, but it's basically about the 6 laws of wealth. I researched this. I'm a nerd with this stuff, and I have gone back to before Christ to learn how is it that the wealthiest families throughout history, not just our history before Christ, how is it that they build wealth, but more importantly, how did they keep it and pass it down to generation after generation? So here's the 6 laws of wealth. And then, there's 10 rules to prosperity, but we're not going to have time to get into that. They can go to YouTube and watch my YouTube channel to learn them. So law number 1, these are laws, folks. These are not, I want to define a law first. Do you know what a law is? You know gravity?
Yeah.
It's a law, right?
You can't
If you
can't
go to
get
the top
around
of
it.
this building and you jump, what happens?
Yeah, you break your head.
Or you're dead. Okay?
Yeah.
You can't stop that. You can't bend it. You can't change it. Laws are laws for a reason. So we can talk about speculation, crypto and all these other things you can
Irrefutable,
invest in.
yeah.
I'm talking about the laws to building wealth. Law number 1 is very simple. You or anyone else must keep 1/10 of their gross income.
Of gross. That's everything that comes in, not the net.
Correct.
You're talking gross
Correct.
income.
And if you can't do 1/10, don't be like, I can't even do this. Listen, work up to it. Okay, but that is the law. You need to do 1/10 or 10% of your gross income, bar none, because anything less than that, you can't get off the ground to true wealth. Yeah. Law number 2. I've been talking about all these laws the whole time. That's what you don't know, but now you're going to put it into perspective. Law number 2, your money must work for you. You've been taught your whole life to work for money. Now it's time your money works for you. Now what money? All of it. The equity sitting in your house that you're not doing anything with because you're just bragging. You got this house worth so much and the equity's there. It won't be there tomorrow. It might not be there the next day.
Yeah.
That money needs to be out to work. All of the money that you kept or the money that's sitting around being lazy needs to go to work. And when that money goes to work, it's going to do what? It's going to create offspring, which are in the forms of dividends,
Little monies.
interest. Yep, little baby monies.
Little baby
and then
monies.
those little baby monies go out and work. I teach this way because it's easy for you to articulate it in your mind. It sounds funny, but I call them little green marching men.
Oh, really?
My offspring, okay, the interest, dividends, and gains are little green marching men, and I send them back out to work. Yeah. Law number 3 is the most important one, and this is the one that's highly broken right now, and it is called protect your wealth. So if anyone's ever seen the movie Talladega Nights, it's a hilarious movie, but in that movie, Ricky Bobby's dad tells him something, and he says, son, if you're not first, you're last. So when you're looking at your wealth, the 1/10, all the money that you've created, you have to protect it. So how do you protect it? It's simple. You should only, and you're very good at this, invest in things that you know, like, and understand. Or invest with people. If you're going to give up control and invest in people that have knowledge based on time, wisdom, and failure. Do your due diligence. I mean, too many people are like, oh, this guy's good at this. They don't even do the research.
You know what, brother? It's very funny that you mentioned that. Whenever I'm looking, getting coaching or going out, having a sit down with somebody who I want to learn from, one of the first things, or I think that can mentor me, one of the first things I ask is instead of telling me about the successes, have you failed?
Love it.
And if they say no, like, I want teeth in the game.
No, you're right. And it goes right along with building wealth. You have to invest with people that have that experience, that knowledge, and that wisdom. And wisdom only comes from failing. I don't care what anyone says. It's time and failing. That's it.
Everything else is theory.
And the other thing, too, in being the bank, you always want to try to have security behind your money, which is part of protection. Number 4 is easy. Thou who seeks unrealistic returns, you could just say if you're seeking unrealistic returns, your money is certain to flee you. So if you're seeking unrealistic returns every single time, not once, not twice, every time, your money will flee you. Most people can't comprehend that right now. Things are too good. We've been in a bull market for the longest.
What are you talking about? NFTs, a drawing of an ape, can sell for $7 million.
My index fund that I put money into never loses money. Everybody knows that. Okay. Don't seek unrealistic returns. Your money will flee you. And this is the biggest thing I see today. I see so many people buying into FOMO. Oh, inflation 7%. I got to seek riskier assets. No one ever stops and thinks, like, you don't think that that's by design? Inflation's going up because the government just printed a bunch of money, dropped interest rates close to zero, makes you feel rich. You then witness inflation because the government's hidden tax is inflation. And now all of a sudden you want to rush all your money into risky assets. It's a trap. And
Yeah.
too many people are going to fall into that trap because
Yeah,
of this law.
one thing that's evident, I don't think a lot of people register. At least if you're not thinking about that space, it's that interest rates and inflation. It's the government's way or centralized banks' way of controlling the not cash flow but the quantity of
Monetary
money
system.
out there. Yeah, quantity of money out there. So
100%.
it's
It's all by design.
yeah, it's all by design.
I
Completely
study
agree.
this stuff. But don't seek unrealistic returns or your money will flee you is number 4. Number 5, we've already talked about this, and you're perfect for this. So if you want to build true wealth, there's one thing you got to do. And most people don't like this, but you got to give. You got to give unconditionally. You got to go out there, and every single day of your life, you got to solve other people's problems, even if there's zero monetary value in it. And people say, oh, I do this all the time. Great. You know what I do? To test and keep my mind straight on law number 5. How many of you get in the mail? Like you get mail. Today it seems like the only mail you get is people asking for money, right?
Right.
It's Salvation Army, it's Goodwill, it's this animal shelter. Every one of those I get, I open them up. I don't even think anymore. I pull the thing out. I physically grab a checkbook. Well, what's that? Some of the younger audience might say, a checkbook. And I handwrite
You don't sell?
a check. Sometimes it's for $5, sometimes it's $25, sometimes it's $500.
Yeah.
Whatever my heart tells me to put on the page, I don't think it through. And I write a check, put it in there, lick a stamp, and mail it. Everyone. My wife and my staff know this. When they get them, they don't throw them out like they used to. They're like, hey, here's another one. Great. Another opportunity for me to solve a problem.
To give. I love that, man. I don't do it that way. I do something similar though. And I have allocations, right? Anytime I get, profit comes in, I allocate into different accounts. I have a create account, I have a wealth account, I have a live account, an investment account, and a flow account. So I mean, I just divide them, right? But they have meaning and for me. So the contribution account, I have 10% that goes straight into my contribution account. That's it. So next thing you know, I have $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 in there that they're not mine. Contribution. Why? Because I'm taking a percentage of everything that comes in, right? Next thing you know, like you're able to donate and actually make an impact, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing when you put yourself in that space.
I don't think you realize how high level that is. What you just said about segregating your bank accounts. When you watch the 90-minute video, everything we do with our banking system involves a segregated account for that reason. In my business, all my properties are segregated accounts. I have a profit account, a marketing account, just like you. Too many people put all their money in one account, and then they wonder why that account's like the black hole, and there's no money at the end of the month. It's because you mentally don't understand money, first off, and second off, you have to segregate it so you can keep track of it. It's the simplest
it's
way.
management, wealth management, right? Now, for example, the create account it's creating memories, it's vacations, it's whatever stuff, but it's not digging into my lifestyle, which is my live account and expenses, and flow account, which is whatever open debt I have in terms of payments and credit cards, and I have an investment account which I allocate to do anything that I'm going to grow, right? But it's if we want to take a vacation, like all I got to do is look at that create account. Like, okay, cool, let's roll.
So I mean, that's the 5th law: is give unconditionally. And a lot of people say they will, but do you really do it? Every day? Yeah. Like that's why all my stuff is free. That's why you can watch the 90-minute video for free. You can learn on all my stuff. It's all free. It's a very important reason. It's why I'm wealthy. And the 6th law of wealth is a very simple one. We're here for a very short period of time. And while we're here, we have to spend time building a legacy that outlives us. So the 6th law of wealth is you have to have a purpose. This is the same reason why people always tell you can't get where you want to go if you don't know where you're going. In life, in the grand scheme of wealth building, how can you ever obtain wealth if you don't have a plan for when you're no longer here? Your wealth is a component of leaving a legacy. And a lot of people think, oh, well, that's why you got that life insurance. That's part of it. But leave a bigger legacy. Leave a legacy like this book I'm writing that is going to be for my daughter so that she understands the 6 laws of wealth. And when she masters the 6 laws and the 10 rules to prosperity, I will give her a key. And she might be 18, she might be 21, she might be 30, I don't know. But the book is being written for her, and the key holds the key to the inheritance. She cannot get the key until she masters the 6 laws.
Wow.
That is a true story. The book is being written in a third person about a father telling bedtime stories to his daughter, and the stories are about fictitious people, but every one of the 6 stories are the stories we just went through, more depth, but about my failures and how I violated all 6 of these laws of wealth. And until I started applying the 6 laws and following true laws, that only then is when I turned and started becoming wealthy.
Man, that's crazy. And that's deep.
And it's kind of interesting because we went through a lot of my backstory and my failures.
Yeah.
My failures were all related to one of these 6 laws being broken.
They tied into it.
Every one of them.
That's amazing, man. It's
And this one, the seek unrealistic returns.
mm-hmm.
Many people just call that greed.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, it can be, that, right? Greed plays into it. Then you also have the shiny object, and you have that, this is what everybody's doing. This is what people are talking about. This is what people are saying they're doing, which, I mean, we see it all the time. It's just, a lot of it can be noise, can be communication and misleading. It's I don't know. Now you can't just drive off of whatever you're hearing. You have to do your due diligence. Yeah. Like, it's super important.
And the biggest thing I get with this whole concept, in these laws, is people are like, well, why would I put my money in this specially designed whole life when it only pays me 6% when I can make more in real estate? I can make more in the S&P 500. When I hear that, I know that they didn't catch anything I just said.
Yeah.
Because this is not the I got to pick this or that. This is the and asset.
Yeah.
This is the this and you do that.
Yeah.
This and you do that. This is where your money starts. And
Yeah.
then it just moves out to whatever the other investments are. So when I get people saying, "Oh, the S&P 500 made 14%," I said, "So you must drive your car looking in the rear view mirror every day." I'm surprised you haven't crashed yet, because that's how you're looking at your money in the rear view mirror. So I would put money in this, and then when the market falls, like it did in COVID, I took loans from this and I bought Apple, I bought Tesla, I bought a bunch of stocks. When I then sold those stocks, I moved all the money back into my banking system, because literally you only have a choice. Where is your money going to go when you make money?
And when you put it back
Somebody
in
else's
there,
bank.
that 4% goes away, right? Because you come back to it.
The 4% you're paying the insurance company, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
So
I mean,
your money's going up, and the amount of your loan is always going down.
Yeah.
If you keep that circle going.
Right. Man, that's insane. Chris, this is enlightening to say the least, right? It's one, you have a very impressive track record, and everything you've been through over the last 44 years is just fucking insane.
It's been quite the freaking ride, man.
And I mean, you're putting, you have a ton of content. You educate people. You put a lot of value out there too. So, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, maybe find out more about what you're doing. I mean, definitely find out more about this, because I think it's important, right? At least you have an awareness of it to start off with. What's the best way to get a hold of you?
One place you're gonna go. You just go to chrisnaugle.com, and it's Chris and then Naugle. The 90-minute video will pop up first, okay? Watch that 90-minute video. That is the gateway if you want to get on a call with me or my team, and we'll just answer all your questions. That's the first thing. I also have 3 books written right now, and all of them are free on my website, so might as well grab some free books while you're there. Get the books. And then, and one of the books is called Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery, all about this banking concept. And then while you're at it, I do a free webinar every single Wednesday at 1 p.m., so might as well register for the free webinar, and we'll give you some more free stuff. So you see, free. The law of wealth, number 5.
Number 5.
Give,
and I wrote all those down.
Give. I saw that. But that's how you get stuff. And
this is I feel special when I get to learn about something that's not out yet. I was like, yes, I'm part of the inside.
It's going to be a while. It's a hard book for me to write. It's very personal.
I am holding the golden ticket right here. So anybody who heard that, replay the podcast, because it's important. I think it makes perfect sense. Yeah. I mean, even if you look at monetary, for example, if you're looking at the financials of a business, 1/10 of gross revenue should be going to owners. Everything else is going to be overhead, payroll, and all that stuff. Exactly.
Them in practice.
Yeah.
And knowledge is nothing without application. So
100%.
People just need to start applying.
100%.
It's hard. It's changing everything you know and do with money, because everything you've been taught in your life, for the most part, is a lie.
I love it, man. Where can somebody find you on social media?
Everywhere. Pick a channel. Just go The Chris Naugle. It's my handle on every single one. I got a big thing on TikTok. If you like TikTok, YouTube's my #1 channel. I got over 500 videos all about money on there.
Love it.
Instagram, I'm very active on. Facebook, got a lot of stuff on there too.
I love it. Chris, thank you so much, man. It's been a blast. Before we sign off, I have a question that I love asking my guests, and that's, if you were walking down the street and you ran into your 17-year-old self, what would you tell that kid?
Oh my gosh, this is the most important thing I could have told that person. Give more.
Wow.
Give more. And give, like, from your heart. Just give. That would be the only thing I would say.
Man.
I don't know how that 17-year-old would handle that, but I would lay it out in a very firm way that you have to do this. Just trust me.
Wow. I love it, man. I love it. Chris, thank you so much. It's been a blast having the show.
Thank you. It was an honor and a privilege to be on. Thanks, man.
Family, it's a wrap. Stay focused. You got this.